So if you think that, oh, my Jupiter Antra will come, or my Jupiter is going to transit over your 7th house, or my Jupiter is in the Lagna, or my Jupiter is in the 7th house, or Jupiter in the Navamsa Lagna, or Jupiter in the 7th house of your Navamsa, hey, it's a red alert. You got to watch that, hey, it's not the Karaka of marriage, it's the Karaka of bhakti. It's the Karaka of spirituality. It's the Karaka of knowledge. And marriage is not spirituality.
Completely opposite to that.
Completely opposite to that.
So that is one of the biggest myths that you've broken on this episode.
Absolutely.
That do not look for Jupiter when you want to get married.
Absolutely.
So then why have we stereotyped it as that, Venus is something that should be looked upon?
Because Venus is also Karaka of love and romance.
People very easily say that if you have Ketu in 7th house, you have chances of divorce. Is it that easy?
No, it's absolutely not that easy. Because until we have checked chart in totality, you see, one yoga will never give you a divorce. There are multiple things.
Hello and welcome back to your favorite spiritual podcast, Speaking Tree, and this is Rangoli Sharma with you. Friends, marriage is one of the biggest reasons why people turn to astrology. What kind of person will I get married to? When will I get married? Are there any chances of marriage at all in my chart? Are there any chances of divorce or separation? These are some common questions that people want to know through the help of astrology. In today's podcast, we will discuss all these questions but in depth. Our guest for today has some very unique insights that I have never heard before. Like for marriage, you do not always need to see the 7th house. And yes, that is the biggest myth that people have. So this podcast will be an eye-opening podcast for you for the case of marriage. All your questions will be answered. When will you get married? What would be the nature of your spouse? Are there any chances of marriage at all in your chart? So stay tuned with me if you're planning to get married in the recent coming time. And this will answer all your questions. And let me introduce the guest to you today. We have one of the best spiritual astrologers in India, Navneet Chitkara, sir. So welcome back to Speaking Tree.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Sir, it's always a pleasure to have you back on our show.
Thank you.
And I'm sure the unique insights that you shared with me off the camera, people are going to learn a lot about their quality of marriage.
Yes.
So let's start with marriage. Let's start with how should one approach the concept of marriage through astrology?
You see, first of all, we have to understand what is marriage.
Yeah.
And marriage is a legal contract that gives you mental, psychological, emotional, and physical support. And that's a long, contract. Not just for a few years or, people say Saat Janam Ka Rishta.
Exactly.
And I don't know how many Janam Ka Rishta, but it is a very important part of somebody's life. A good, happy, or I would say not disturbed married life can give you a lot of happiness, long life, and gives you a lot of success as well. It is said that behind every successful man, there is a woman.
Yes.
But behind every unsuccessful man, there are more than one woman. Right?
Wow.
So technically, you have to understand marriage with different perspectives.
Yeah.
First thing, in India, or especially it's a very general mindset that when two people are trying to get married, they go for Guna Maitri, which is known as Tara Maitri or Ashtkut Guna Milan.
Milan, yes.
I think that's the worst way of doing it.
Really?
Okay. Now, why I would say worst way? Because people are only considering the Tara Maitri, the Guna Maitri, only considering.
Yeah.
Based on my experience, yes, the Guna Maitri has importance because it has several, combinations to check with respect to each other that are very, very important about temperament, love, life, health. But on the same time, there are many other important factors which a lot of astrologers and people miss them. Now, the first thing about understanding a marriage is to understand that marriage is not only a partnership. I would ask you a question before I go ahead and explain this.
Yes.
My experience and the teachings that have come to me from my gurus, they said, Navneet, the first thing that you look at in a horoscope is not the seventh house for marriage, but the fourth house. Okay, now you'll ask me, why fourth house? What is the reason? You see, every human being is here for a particular task, for particular karma.
Yes.
So if you're born, you have your Lagna, and the 10th house, which is your karma, is one of the most important houses of your horoscope. Similarly, when we look at partnership, association from the 7th house, the 10th from the 7th house is the 4th house, which is working of your marriage, which is the karma of your marriage. Okay. Now I ask you a question in a very simple way.
Yeah.
Would you marry a boy or a man who doesn't have a home, who doesn't have a good heart, who doesn't have, comforts of his life? Suppose if I'm looking for a boy or a man for my sister or for my daughter, the first requirement that I would have is he has a home, right? I will not, if he doesn't have a room for you, if he doesn't have a small place for my daughter to live with, I think the marriage will be at the question mark.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So that good heart, that, good home, the sukha, which is the comforts of life, are seen from the 4th house of your horoscope. And that are the basis of marriage.
So, but that 4th house, that belongs to us, right? Our comfort and our home. How can we compare it to our partners?
So that's what I'm saying. You see, you're looking for a spouse.
Yeah.
Here I'm talking to the 4th house for both male and female.
Okay.
For a male, 4th house is his property, his home, his heart, his comforts.
Yes.
On the same time, for you, the 4th house is also the comforts, the heart, right? Now, suppose if you marry someone who doesn't have good things in the 4th house, I mean, if already someone was having it, this person is going to go and ruin the 4th house, the comforts of house, right? So eventually, end of day, why do you get married? You get married to start a new life, a new home, new family. That's where the 4th house is very, very important. See, 7th house, marriage can be, or partnership can be between two animals also. They can mate, they can be sexually together. That's where the 7th house things end. But as a human, the most important thing is that look at the 4th house. Look at if there is sukha, if there is happiness, if there is comfort, if there is, a very clear height, a clear-hearted or a sober heart, or what do you call it, is a perfect home. Maybe a 1-bedroom home, but it's a good home. It's a pure home. If you don't have that, good yogas or an auspicious 4th house, even though the 7th house have all the great combinations, the marriage is not going to be good. That's the first thing we look at, which is technically 10th from the 7th and the 4th house of your horoscope, which is so important.
Yes. So one thing is look at the 4th house.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that is where the happiness of the marriage is. That's it, where how the marriage will work. Because the question before the matchmaking is also that will my marriage work? Do I have marriage in my life? Is there a promise of marriage in my life? So promise of the marriage is a very, very different concept where we understand whether you have marriage or not, right? But how will be my marriage? Will the marriage work? That is not to be seen from the 7th house primarily. It has to be seen from the 1st house, from the 4th house first, and then from the 7th house.
Okay. So how do we look for the nature of our spouse? That is considered from the 7th house itself, right?
No.
So
That's again not seen from the 7th house. See, to understand the nature of a spouse, you'll have to go to the Navamsa.
okay.
Right? So there's a chart known as D9,
Yeah.
which is the Navamsa chart. The Navamsa chart, first house of the D9 is your attitude towards marriage. Right? So for an example, if you have malefics there, or if you have drishti or the aspect of malefic planets in the first house of your D9 chart, your attitude towards marriage will be very, very bad. Right?
Okay.
Probably you would have some strange requirements for marriage. Maybe you don't want to get married, you want to think of your career first, and then once the career is settled, the marriage age is gone, right? And now you want to get married and you're not getting the the actual required thought matches, like we have Ketu in the Lagna in the D9, or we have Saturn in the Lagna,
Or Mars.
right? Or even Mars, or even Sun. These are the yogas where probably your attitude is very, very strong and practical. But if there is a drishti of Jupiter, or drishti of Shukra, or drishti of Chandra, it gives that attitude to be very, very positive towards marriage. You want to get married at right age.
Yeah.
Right? When you have any relationship of benefic planets with the with the D9 Lagna, Navamsa Lagna.
Okay.
Now, exactly opposite to the first house of your D9 is the 7th house of D9, which is your spouse.
Okay.
Right? So now to understand how will be the nature of my spouse, how will be he like, you have to understand the planets that are sitting in the 7th house, known as Bhavavastha.
Yes.
And if there are no planets, then you look at the Lord, of the 7th house. So for an example, if you have Saturn there, so then you're going to have a very cold kind of a personality, very mature kind of a personality as your spouse. Saturn is also very hardworking personality, like little dark in complexion, lean, tall. So that's what Saturn qualities are. Suppose you have Mercury there, so that person is going to be very analytical, right? He's going to have great problem solving ability. He will be also little childish in his nature sometimes, right? Suppose you have Mars there, or the Lord is the Mars, right? Then you're going to have a very passionate and aggressive life partner who is also very passionate, who has a lot of desires from himself. You want to be something biggest in his life, and on the same time he's going to be impulsive, short-tempered, aggressive, yet very, very emotional. Right? So it's going to be a difficult person to handle. If you got Mars there, or the Lord is Mars, right? Similarly, if you've got Jupiter there, so again, having Jupiter in the 7th house, that's in your horoscope, okay? From where we are looking at, the life partner, the 7th house. So if you have Venus there, so that means you're going to have a very romantic relationship, a young guy, who really like luxury and love and romance and so many expectations from marriage. That's what Venus does in the 7th house. Now, if you've got Rahu there, then the problem is with deceptiveness. He could be deceptive. He would live in an illusionary world. He can be a very techie guy, someone who's very tech savvy, right? So if you've got Ketu there, he's going to be very brave. He's going to be self-contained person.
And spiritual also?
And maybe to an extent spiritual also. Maybe he can take certain headless decisions as well. Okay. He's going to look at micro things in his life when you have Ketu in the 7th house. But then many people will have combinations of many planets in the 7th house.
Yeah.
So you have to decode by finding out what that combination means. Right? So like if you have Saturn and Sun together in the 7th house, so he's practical also, he's egoistic also, he's very disciplined also, hardworking also. So that is what Sun and Saturn can give you, right? So to understand who will be your spouse, who will be he like, what are his characteristics, what are his traits, you just don't look at a planet known as Dharakaraka, which is the planet with the lowest degree. Said, Mercury is my Dharakaraka, so my husband will be like Mercury. That's wrong. You have to go to D9 chart, look at the 7th house, right? The Bhavavastha of the 7th house and the Lord of the 7th house. And people who are married, they can open up their horoscopes and 100%, if your Navamsa is right, if your birth time is right, if it doesn't require birth time rectification, the traits, the characteristics of your spouse will exactly match to the 7th house of Navamsa.
Okay. So, sir, when I talked about the nature of the spouse, you focused more on the 7th house of Navamsa and not the Lagna.
Yeah.
Why so?
Lagna is just the experience. Lagna is the outer world. Lagna is not your inner self. Lagna is the environment which is given to you. The experience that you will have in this life is Lagna. D9 is your immediate prarabdha, your past life karmas. And you know what? Marriages are made in heaven. They are not made in the earth. So that is why it is more important to consider Navamsa 7th house when you look at the traits of your spouse, rather than looking at the 7th house or the 7th lord. You see, we people are sitting here, right? I'm trying to tell you some information. You are trying, but our real self in the personal life may be very, very different from the kind of environment we are giving to the people or what we are showing. Everyone has a very different real self. Everyone has a very different personal habits, right? So those internal personal habits, right? You see, when you meet someone after finding a profile from any matrimonial website, so he comes and meet with you for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. He may not be what he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? He may be someone who is trying to tell you that he's very decent. But when you travel with him for 3 days or 5 days, you understand how he behaves with his parents, how he behaves with his sister, how he behaves with his colleagues, how he behaves when the food is not right, how he behaves when he gets a very awkward call from the office, how he behaves while he's driving the car, right? And someone overtakes in a wrong way. That is the real self of a person that comes out, and you can see that real self in your Navamsa, because Navamsa is your spouse chart.
Yeah.
Right? D1 is your chart. D1 is your partnership. And D9 is your spouse. It's your destiny. It's the destiny from the previous birth. It's your prarabdha. D9 shows the inner dissection of your bhagya. Right? That the portion of love, happiness and sadness that you brought from your previous birth, from prarabdha. That's what is seen in the D9 chart.
Wow. So then what does the 7th house of Lagna shows in context to marriage, if it doesn't tell the nature of the spouse?
It shows the circumstances of the partnership, and it shows the environment of the marriage.
Okay.
See, there are two things. Like we have the studio.
Yeah.
There's an environment of the studio, but then there's you, then there's me. Right? So this environment of the studio and we talking to each other is the Lagna Kundli, the circumstances. But what is that is going to come out of me, and what is something which is going to come out of you is our D9.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? As I said, that we are not looking at the attitude of the marriage from the D1, but from the Lagna of the D9. That is your attitude. And your spouse's attitude is not going to be, the 7th house of the D1, because it is not opposite to you. The 7th house is something which is an opposite intelligence. Something which is exactly sitting in front of you, exactly opposite, the 7th house.
Yeah.
But does that mean that it is actually you?
No, not at all.
The actually you is in the 7th house of D9. Which is written in your destiny, that what kind of person you are going to get in your life, with whom you are going to live for 30-40 years of your life, because you have all the karmic settlements with him: dharma, artha, kama, moksha, lobh, krodh, moh, kam. So these are part of marriage, because what is marriage? Marriage is a legal license for kama, and then once you go through that kama, then there is also krodha, then there is also lobh, there is also moh. You have lobh for children, you have moh for children after marriage. Then you want to make sure that the work of your spouse, the financial condition of your spouse remains good, right? So kam, krodh, lobh and moh. all will be settled for next 40-45 years. And this settlement is already scripted in your life.
Yeah. It's
You have no option.
Destined.
It is destined. So if something is scripted, something is destined, it's the time to look at D9. Because that scripted theme you are going to experience in D1.
Okay.
Which is the Lagna Kundli.
Yeah.
But to understand that script, you have to go to D9.
So then, but what about the karma that we create after being born? Like our kundali is only for the time when I was born into this world. But even after that, after all these, 26, 27 years, I created some karma. What about that karma?
See, again, whatever you have created in this life is basically your reaction to a given situation. Right? Suppose the situation is very, very bad.
Yeah.
Right? And you're reacting so badly, you're all over the place, right? That means you've improved nothing in this life. But suppose the situation is difficult, you're still balanced, trying to handle the situation in the right way. That's your karma, that's your free will. And these karmas, actually, that's where the Jyotish comes into play, right? Jyotish is not going to change your destiny, Jyotish is not going to change your spouse, but it will help you so that you can experience things in the better way. For an example, if you have a very problematic married life, which I have seen in your horoscope, imagine, then as an astrologer, it is my responsibility to mentally prepare you for it. Rather than I tell you that you do these remedies and your married life will become good. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Then I will request you to change your priorities, lower down your expectations from marriage to profession, right? And suppose you don't have profession in your life, then I will ask you to work on your health, work on yourself, work on your creativity, wait for the right time to come. And I will try to settle down your reactions, means your new karmas. For an example, I had this case and I told this girl that, hey, I don't see a good married life in your horoscope. Rather you start crying on it, or you start, cursing yourself or cursing your bhagya or start cursing someone else, right? The best thing that you should do here is to accept. The acceptance. So acceptance is this life's karma, where you look at your horoscope and you accept that, yes, it is not there, I will not react. And that's what your gurus will tell you. That's what your teachers will tell you. That's what your mentors. And if you follow them and you do not react overly happy in the happiest situation, and you start feeling proud of yourself unnecessarily, right? And you do not feel extremely sad in the saddest of the situations, right? These are the circumstances which is expected out of you. These are the things which are expected out of you. That is what your present karmas should be. Just giving a reaction to a scripted situation in your life.
Wow. And so maybe the acceptance is also a settlement of some previous karma,
Absolutely. If you have not performed certain good karmas in the past, you will not find a teacher, you will not find a guru, you will not find a mentor who will tell you to have that acceptance, and the acceptance will not be there.
Yeah. So now that we discussed some aspects of marriage and the nature of the spouse, I want to know, and I'm sure our viewers also want to know, what are the signs that a person will get married to someone from their past life? It can be a soulmate, it can be a twin flame as well.
Yeah, so for that, there's a principle, and this is not the formula, but this is one of the formula, which is very, very effective. And I have told this in many platforms as well. The only way you can recognize someone who is your soulmate and who is someone you will get married in the future is you have to understand the antra dasha of a planet which is exactly opposite to Surya in your D9 chart. Suppose you have Gemini rising in the D9, okay, and Surya is in the Gemini, Surya is in the Lagna. Exactly opposite to Gemini will be Jupiter.
Yes.
Right. The first priority is that in the 7th house, we have a planet or we don't have a planet. So if we have a planet, then you see when you met that person, was the Antra Dasha of that planet, which was then the 7th house was running or not, right? Suppose you are Gemini Lagna and you have Surya in the Lagna in the D9. Opposite is the 7th house where you've got Rahu. So you check, did you meet that guy in the Rahu Antra Dasha?
Okay.
Because Antra Dashas are to be seen from the divisional charts.
Okay.
That's another principle. So suppose if you don't have Rahu, you have Mars. So if you met someone, Mahadasha could be any, but in the Antra Dasha of Mars, right? Then, because see, Surya is Karaka of your soul.
Yeah.
Right? It is a Naisargik Atma Karaka.
Yes.
Navamsa is all about marriage. So wherever is Surya, find out a planet exactly opposite to the Surya, which is Surya's soulmate.
Oh.
The 7th from the Surya. That if there is a planet, if there are 2 or 3 planets, then probably you can meet someone in either of the Antardashas of 2 or 3.
Okay.
And if there's no planet, pick up the Lord of the planet, Lord of the Rashi, which is exactly opposite to the Surya, and see in your horoscope that did you meet this guy in the Antradasha, of that particular planet.
And in this case, it's Jupiter, right? Like if the 7th house is
it's a Jupiter
empty,
in this case. Of course, the 7th from the Gemini is Sagittarius, which is Jupiter, which is,
So just to make it more clear to our audience, you look at the planet opposite to Sun in your Navamsa, and you look at the Lord of that house, which is opposite to Sun. You find its Antardasha, and then you see,
did you meet that guy in that Antardasha or not?
Yes.
Right? And the first priority is given to the planets are sitting in the house opposite to Surya.
Sun, It's something very new, like I've never heard of this concept. So sir, you previously said that we should not only consider the Guna Maitri, there are some other compatibility methods also. So I want to know what are those methods which show a good marriage or a good compatibility between two people.
That's a very beautiful question. You see, the first thing that is very, very important is your intelligence, your Lagna, your thought process, and how do you carry that thought process in your life. So Lagna is your character, your intelligence, and your thought process. This Lagna Maitri is very, very important. So ideally, this Lagna Maitri should not be 212, 9-5 or 6-8. Now I'll explain you what. Suppose a person A is Aries rising and the person B is Taurus rising. So what are their Lagnas with respect to each other? For Taurus, Aries is the 12th house. And for Aries, Taurus is the 2nd house. That means their Lagnas are 212 with each other. And 212 combination of the Lagnas are losses to each other. It's pure business. Right? The marriage is actually, where you are, not in compatibility with the thought process. You are trying to cut each other, right? You are losses to each other. Because for Aries, the 2nd Taurus is Marak Bhava. And for Taurus Lagna, Aries is Vaya Bhava, complete loss, right? So 212 combination is not good. Similarly, 6-8 combination. 6-8 would how? If you are Aries Lagna and your spouse is Virgo Lagna. So what is the combination from Virgo to Aries? 6-8, right? Combination. It's a conflict. The 6th house is house of conflict. 8th house is sudden events that you've not expected in your life. Sudden losses that you've not expected in your life. So 6-8 Lagna Maitri is also a very, very disputed Lagnas to get married. Similarly, the next one is 9-5. 9-5 means, suppose you are Sagittarius Lagna and you are getting married to Leo Lagna, right? So the combination of Sagittarius to Leo is 9-5 combination. They are 9 and 5 places away. This is where there is a traditional gap, the backgrounds of the family. So maybe a boy will be more traditional or more fatherly like a spouse or a more motherly kind of a spouse, which is always, behaving like a mother or behaving like a father. Aise mat baitho. This is how you're standing, how you're walking, how you eating, what are you wearing. You don't know how to carry yourself. That's a 9-5 Lagna Matri. So the first thing, even before you look at the Ashtkut Guna Matri, look at your intelligence matches or not. Right? Is it 212? Is it 9-5? Or is it 6-8 combination? The best would be like Aries Lagna and Gemini Lagna. What is the combination between Aries and Gemini? It's 3-11 combination. From Aries, Gemini is at the 3rd position, and from Gemini, Aries is the 11th house.
Yeah.
So it is 3-11 combination. It is going to increase the prakram of Aries, and for Gemini it is going to increase the gains.
Yeah.
Right? So 3-11 is very good. Then 4-10 is very good. Right? The best is 1-7. Like you're an Aries Lagna and your spouse is Libra Lagna. Right? Or 4 Cancer with Capricorn is very, very good.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have 1-7 Lagnas to each other, it doesn't mean that you're going to have a very successful married life. But it is the first condition that your Lagnas are compatible. Your brain, your thought process is compatible. Then the second one is, where is your thought going? Right? So you have a thought in mind. Okay, the logic behind that thought. Logically, when you try to understand a thought, it is in the hands of the Lagna Lord. The Lord of the Lagna, the planet which is associated with the first house Rashi, that is known as the Lagna Lord.
Yeah.
Same principles will apply to the Lagna Lord. Suppose, a partner A is Aries Lagna and his Lagna Lord is Mars. And Mars is sitting in the Taurus sign. Okay, so my Lagna Lord has gone into Taurus.
Yeah.
Person B, right, who is probably Simha Lagna, which is Leo rising, and the Lagna Lord is Surya. But the Surya is gone into sign of Gemini. So my Lagna Lord is in Taurus. Your Lagna Lord is in the sign of Gemini. Now Taurus and Gemini are 212 from each other. So if the Lagna Lords are in 212 or 9-5 or 6-8, that means your thought process and the logic behind the thought is also very conflicting. Right? So Lagna was your his thought, but there's a logic behind that thought. So now the logics are also not matching, which means that okay, I accepted that you have these thoughts, but I understand your logic. If my Lagna Lord is not 212 or 9-5 or 6-8, but if I don't understand your thought and I also do not understand the logic behind that thought, it is very, very conflicting now. It's where the fighting is boiling. It's going to the next level. Suppose I'm telling you that you're not supposed to wear this dress, and then I'm also not telling you the logic behind it.
Yeah.
Right? Then you'll be so frustrated in your life that what am I doing with this person? He has no basis to tell me that why I should not do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that Lagna Matri and the Lagnesha Matri, I will not even go to checking the gunas. Right? And then the third condition is look at the Chandra, which is known as Bhakut Dosha, which is part of the
Gun Milan.
Gun Milan.
And it's given 7 marks, right?
Again, yes. And it is again what? It is the same concept with Chandra. That is your Chandra 212, 6-8 or 9-5. So if it is 212, 6-8 or 9-5,
it's not
it is a Bhakut Dosha. Means the mind is also not now. So thought was not matching. The logic behind the thought was not matching. And now the mindset also doesn't match. That's where I close the horoscope, say you can't get married. If you get married, you're going to ruin each other's life.
Right. And even if you have a very good, Gun Milan compatibility more than 18, if you do not match these two, like as sir said,
Absolutely.
this
I've
won't
seen
be
people with 22, 25 Guna Matri, but not having Lagna Matri, Lagnesh Matri, Chandra
And Chandra
Matri.
Matri, yeah.
And once you've gone through this,
Yeah.
the next step, even before you go through all these things, you first have to check the promise in marriage. That do you have marriage in your life or not?
Yeah, so
That's the most important thing.
what shows that whether a person will get married or not?
You see, there are several yogas, not just one. And in this podcast of probably an hour or so, it's very difficult. But I'll tell you some prominent ones.
Can we touch upon the most important
See, the
ones?
most important thing is there's a planet known as Atma Karaka.
Yeah.
Atma Karaka planet is with the highest degree in your horoscope. If that Atma Karaka is Venus, right, you know what happens? You are ready to give so much in marriage that you are going to dedicate yourself in your marriage. But the problem is that you will never find people who will accept your dedication. And then the heart will keep on breaking. And there's an unending karma settlement with many people coming in life going. I've seen people with 7 years of affair, 8 years of, 10 years of affair with Venus Atma Karaka. The person is giving 100% to the opposite person. But eventually this opposite person breaks and leave this person alone with Venus Atma Karaka.
The one who has Venus Atma Karaka.
Absolutely. Venus is love, romance, Karaka of marriage.
Yeah.
And it is holding the highest degree, means highest karma settlement. More is the karma settlement, more is the pain, more is the tragedies involved. So if you have Shukra as an Atma Karaka, or if you've got any Atma Karaka sitting in the 7th house, be it Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, any Atma Karaka, even that shows that there's very heavy karma associated with the 7th house of your Lagna Kundli. Even that can, create problems. Jupiter in the 7th house. You see, Jupiter is a planet which doesn't want you to get married. Jupiter, people say, hey,
Really?
People say, what, Jupiter
is the best for
is
marriage.
the best for marriage. That's the biggest myth. I mean, I'm looking straight into the camera, asking people who have Jupiter in the Lagna, who have Jupiter in the 7th house, tell me if you don't have problems in marriage. Tell me, because you see, Jupiter is a planet of spirituality, knowledge, auspiciousness. It is Brahma Jnana.
Idealistic.
And what is marriage? Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh. Right? And Jupiter wants to take you away from Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh. Right? Wherever Jupiter sits, it expands. Right? However, Jupiter is Karaka of children. It's a Jiva Karaka.
Yeah.
Once you've gotten married and you have that, promise of children in your horoscope, that is coming through Jupiter and Surya.
Yeah.
He'll bless you with that. He will bless you with an environment after marriage. He will bless you, with the auspiciousness after marriage. But the Karaka of marriage is Venus, Shukracharya. So if you think that, oh, my Jupiter Antra will come, or my Jupiter is going to transit over your 7th house, or my Jupiter is in the Lagna, or my Jupiter is in the 7th house, or Jupiter in the Navamsa Lagna, or Jupiter in the 7th house of your Navamsa, hey, it's a red alert. You got to watch that, hey, it's not the Karaka of marriage. It's the Karaka of bhakti. It's the Karaka of spirituality. It's the Karaka of knowledge. And marriage is not spirituality.
Completely opposite to that.
Completely opposite to that.
So that is one of the biggest myths that you've broken on this episode.
Absolutely.
That do not look for Jupiter when you want to get married.
Absolutely. You need to look at Venus. You need to look at any other planets. Not the Jupiter. That is one of the conditions. However, I have seen certain horoscopes where Jupiter has also given the marriage. But we need to check the horoscope in totality. Okay. But just by saying that, hey, Jupiter in the 7th house, I'll have a very great married life, the answer is no. You're not going to. It's giving you a message of being spiritual. It is giving you a message of, consider your husband or a wife as God. Right? And who is God as a husband or a wife in Kali Yuga? Tell me one. Tell me one. Right? That's where the problem is in the Kali Yuga. That's where, the horoscope, the matching and, the considering a horoscope for marriage goes wrong. And then you have another example where the promise of marriage can be a question mark is seventh lord in particular nakshatras. For an example,
Which
seventh
are?
lord is Mula nakshatra. Mula is a deep-rooted nakshatra. It's going to destroy, the house in which the lord of the house is in a particular Mula, right? So suppose your seventh lord is in the Mula nakshatra. It's a red alert, right? It's a red alert of either no marriage or a divorce or a separation, right? Or a problematic situation, because you are going to go so deep into understanding a person that you will not be able to marry that person. See, everyone has some problems when you go very deep in somebody's life. It is not, see, if you keep going very deep into somebody's life, you will not be able to marry that person. You'll see, because when you go deep, you're going to find some negative traits, and then you go further deep, you may find some positive but very negative also. Then you go further deep. That's where the problem comes. Another point is when the seventh lord is in the Gandanta, means the seventh lord is in the nakshatras of Mercury and Ketu, right? And especially the padas which are on the border of the water and fire signs, right? Those padas can also be a great mountain climbing for the marriage, that you have to climb the Mount Everest to get married, right? So these are certain yogas which are red alerts, and I'm sure people who've not gotten married, people who are who are struggling to find the life partner, there will be such yogas. There will be some connections. Saturn can give you delay, but it's not denial of the marriage in the seventh house, right? Ketu is not denial, Rahu is not denial, but Jupiter can be in the seventh house, because if there's a very strong Jupiter, he would not want you to get married. Look at Shri Ram's chart. We have Jupiter in the Lagna.
Yeah, Jupiter moon,
exalted,
Gaj-Kesari yoga.
Right? And what was his married life? What was the promise of marriage in his life?
Wow.
He got married, and where the marriage has gone. You need to understand these concepts. That actual matchmaking and actual compatibility test is very different. The Ashtkut Guda Maitri, I would give only 20 marks out of 100. There are 80% more yogas. For example, forget about two charts. Just talk about one chart. Do I have the matrimonial bliss, the happiness of marriage or not? In my individual horoscope, if I don't have it, it's a red alert for me.
Yeah.
Because whomsoever I'm going to get married, if he also doesn't have it or she also doesn't have it, it's a blast, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? And that is seen from the fourth house of your D9, the Sukha, the fourth house of your D1, Lagna Kundli. And there you also see the dispositor of the seventh house of your Navamsa. So you go to Navamsa chart, you check the lord of the seventh house. If that lord of the seventh house is having any aspect of malefics, Shani, Rahu, or Ketu will not aspect, okay, probably Mars, or especially Shani and Rahu, right? Or the seventh lord is conjunct with malefics, or have a drishti of malefics, right? Your life after marriage is going to be a disaster, right? So, not just the Guda Maitri, not just the Lagna Maitri, you have to see the promise of marriage. You have to see the individual horoscope for marriage happiness. So when you consider all these things, in a standalone horoscope, there you say, okay, yes, get married or do not get married. The promise, the life after marriage. And there's another important concept known as Gati. Gati is, would you be able to take this entire marriage in a very smooth way? Would you walk together, right? How's the speed of the partner? For an example, that can be seen from the seventh lord of your D1, because Gati is an experience. When you are in a high speeding car, it's an experience. So suppose there are three types of rashis or signs, in a horoscope: movable, and then you have fixed, and you have dual.
Yeah.
So if the seventh lord of a person A is in the movable sign, and the seventh lord of the person B is in the fixed sign.
And it's for D9, right?
For the Lagna Kundli, not the D9.
Okay, it's for Lagna.
For the Lagna Kundli.
Okay.
So for the Lagna Kundli, the seventh lord of person A is immovable, and the seventh lord of the person B is in the fixed. So the movable and fixed, they both have very different characters. That movable is highly flexible and fixed is highly rigid. So there's a mismatch of speed and gati, right? That's where the problem is going to be. It's a good idea if the seventh lord are in the same sign or the same kind of a sign. So if that is a mismatch, so gati will be a problem in the marriage. The speed, so one will walk very fast in taking decisions, the other would be slow. If it's a dual, then other will be at times fast, at times very, very slow. That's where the gati of the marriage will not be there. There are huge chapters, in the Agni Purana. You see why Agni is basically the witness of marriage in Hindu Dharma.
Why?
And because it's a side of purity, it's a side of Dharma, right? And you can't learn about marriage in just the Parashara Shastra or any other Shastra. You have to go into Agni Purana, and there are chapters in the Agni Purana. If you go and understand that tells you about marriage, about various types of marriages, compatibility. And this gati depends upon the lord of the seventh house and its position in which sign, movable, dual or fixed. If two people are in the same category of the sign, it is fantastic. Otherwise, it's going to be a mismatch of gati.
But should we give this much importance to the concept of gati?
Absolutely, because you see, if I'm running and you are just walking, you'll be left behind.
Okay.
Are we together? No.
Then why did we not consider the seventh lord of the D9 in this episode of Gati?
The Gati is the experience. Gati is the speed in this birth.
Okay.
It's a present experience. It's the path towards the marriage.
That is why D1 only.
Absolutely.
Okay.
D1 is the experience of your karma.
So, sir, I have one more question. You told us about the Lagna compatibility and the moon compatibility.
And Lagnesha.
And Lagnesh compatibility. Should we also consider Jupiter and Venus? Because in a female's chart, Jupiter is the karaka of husband, and in a male's chart, Venus is the karaka of his wife. So should we also see the compatibility or the signs of Jupiter and Venus?
You see, Jupiter and Venus are never compatible to each other. They are two different gurus
one of us
with different mindset.
Yeah.
Right? So when we look at Venus, right, in a male's chart, we are looking at the kind of females that are going to be in his life. So what are the females in the life of a man? Mother. Then we've got sister, the girlfriend, the wife, daughter. All these are Venus, not just one. So the quality of the Venus in the male child will define all these relationships.
Okay.
Similarly, in a male's chart, Jupiter is like father. Jupiter is also like a guru. It's like teacher. It's like boss. It's like mentor in your life and husband. So it's another myth that Jupiter is only the husband or Venus is only the wife.
Okay.
Any female that you are associated with in your horoscope being a male is Venus.
So then why have we stereotyped it as that, Venus is something that should be looked upon?
Because Venus is also karaka of love and romance.
Although they are like very opposite natured.
They are opposite nature. So Venus is love, romance and devotion.
Yeah.
Jupiter is dharma. That if I have holded somebody's hand, I'll not leave it till my last breath.
And marriage is dharma.
Marriage is dharma.
At the same time.
Absolutely. And Saturn is exalted in the house of Libra.
Yeah.
Which tells you about the balance of life, right? And also, the biggest planet that actually gives you a lot of pain if you don't obey dharma or if you don't stick to dharma is Saturn.
Absolutely. Now, sir, that we discussed about the signs of marriage, now let's talk about separation and divorce. Let's say two people do get married. Then what are the signs that they won't stay together for a very long time, or they will get divorced?
I think I've already explained them. If they get married and they have Dvidvadish Lagna, or they have Dvidvadish Lagnesha, 6-8 Lagna, 6-8 Lagnesha, right, or 9-5 Lagna, 9-5 Lagnesha, the 7th Lord in the D9 is afflicted, shows a very bad married life. The 7th Lord in Mula Nakshatra, 7th Lord being an Atma Karaka, somehow they got married, but they'll be never satisfied. It's a problematic situation. 7th Lord going into the 9th house, 7th Lord going into the 5th house, 7th Lord going into the 4th house and getting afflictions. That's where the problem is, because 7th is a Badak, it's Marak. Now, Marak Lord, the 7th Lord, goes into Bhagya and got afflicted. The marriage is on a red alert. It's a problematic situation. 7th Lord goes to the 5th house, means the Marak Graha is now gone to the Punya Karmas and it is afflicted. 7th Lord is gone to the 4th house, which is Sukhsthana, and it is getting afflicted there. So Sukha is gone, Bhagya is gone, and then your Punya Karmas are gone. These combinations are red alerts. So when I get such horoscopes with 2 or 3 different combinations of a destroyed married life, my first counseling is that if you want to stay in this marriage, keep a lot of willpower, Hatha Yoga, because nothing works above the Hatha Yoga, where you say, oh, I will live with this person.
No matter what.
No matter what. Right? And lower down your expectations. If you can't do any of the two, it will end up in a divorce.
Yeah, like if you want that person to improve or love you someday.
And Jupiter comes into this picture. If Jupiter blesses that, after marriage, if Jupiter is looking at this deadly combination, or Jupiter is blessing through an aspect or through a conjunction, the marriage will survive.
So what they say about Jupiter, that Jupiter spoils where it sits, but if it aspects or it has a drishti, it saves.
It's not about sits. Wherever Jupiter sits, it tries to create more dharmic environment there. It's about dharma, it's about knowledge, it's about being very, very pure. And the problem in Kali Yuga is that we are not pure. That's why you say that where Jupiter sits, it's a problem.
Absolutely.
It's not a problem in Satyuga. It's not a problem in Treta. It's not a problem in Dwapar. It's a problem in Kali Yuga.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about Rashis and everything, but there is a very common misconception that if malefics like Ketu or Saturn, they sit, people very easily say that if you have Ketu in 7th house, you have chances of divorce. Is it that easy?
No. It's absolutely not that easy, because until we have checked chart in totality, you see, one yoga will never give you a divorce. There are multiple things that gives you such a huge impact in your life. So if you say that I have Ketu in the 7th house, or I have Rahu in the 7th house, it's a very layman statement. It's a very, nursery class statement. I'm 100% sure that Rahu or Ketu or Saturn Rahu, will they give you a divorce in marriage? The answer is big no.
Wow. Yeah, so as you said, it's very beginner level astrology when people look at Ketu in the 7th.
Yes.
And there might be chances that if Ketu is really good, it can lead you your way to moksha.
Absolutely.
The partner can lead you towards liberation.
100%, yes.
Right. Definitely. So, sir, now that we talked about the nature of the spouse, the kind and quality of marriage, let's end this beautiful, exclusive episode with this one last question, and that I'm sure our viewers would be waiting for that. How to decide the time of the marriage through the Dasha system? How to see which planet's Dasha is good for me to get married?
You see, the first thing is there are several ways to time marriage. One of the traditional way, it's a Raj Jyotish method, where we look at the dispositor of Ketu. Okay, means look at where Ketu is in your horoscope, look at what sign it is, and then suppose your Ketu is in Virgo.
In D1 or D9?
See, ideally we check in both the charts, but the better result is coming from D9.
Okay, so
look wherever your Ketu is in the D9.
Okay.
Suppose my Ketu is in the sign of Virgo. So the lordship of Virgo is with Mercury.
Yeah.
Go to Mercury wherever it is in your D9.
Okay.
From there, start counting one sign 1 year. Okay, so suppose Ketu is in the Lagna and it's a Virgo Lagna. Mercury is in the 4th house. Okay, so 4th house is year 1, 5th house is year 2. So that means the 3rd house would be 12 years, and then 24 years would be again 3rd house.
Yeah.
Right? And now we also introduce the concept of Desh Kal Patra.
Yeah.
That you are at the age of 34 or 32. You come to me that will I get married or not. So first I will surpass 24 years. Right? Now 25th year will be again 4th house.
Yeah.
26th, 5th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30. So you're at the age of 30. The only condition is at a year when there is a combination or a relationship of a planet who's the lord of the 7th house in the D9. So suppose you were Virgo, Lagna. The lord of the 7th house would be Pisces, which is Jupiter.
Yeah.
So a year, in this formula, we do keep counting the year. If there is a relationship with Jupiter, the 7th house or the 7th lord, right, in a particular year. So your Jupiter is suppose in the 10th house, right? So we'll go to 24, the 25th, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. The 30th is a year when you can get married.
Wow.
Okay. So we go ahead, we check. So 36, maybe 37, 38. Wherever there is a relationship of the 7th lord coming in this, cycle of calculation, that is the time where you can say that this is a year there is a strong probability of getting married. That's one technique.
Yeah.
The second technique is that the Antradasha of the 2nd lord, of the 7th lord, of the 10th lord and the 12th lord can also give you marriage in the D9, the Antardasha of the planets.
Okay.
But there are other principles also. But this Raj Jyotish principle, look at the dispositor of the Ketu, go there, start counting the years, right, and see Desh Kal Patra, right, which is the nearest year that you can see. And if that house is making any sambandha with the 7th lord of D9, you'll get married there.
And this is a very advanced concept, I'm sure.
Of course, if it is shown on pictorial,
Yeah.
way, that's where it is easy with different examples.
Yeah, definitely. So, sir, this was absolutely very insightful, very enlightening and very advanced episode that we did today on marriage astrology. I'm sure this kind of episode you've not heard anywhere before because we do not touch upon the basics of, marriage astrology, look at the 7th house or, look at the 4th from 7th. It was something way beyond than that, and I'm very grateful that you chose to do this with us today. This exclusive episode on marriage astrology. And I'm sure all of you would try to apply all these principles when you are planning to get married or you want to see the quality of your married life. So I hope it really helps you, and you can watch it twice if you want because I'm sure this episode gave you some advanced insights into marriage astrology. So please do let me know how did you find today's discussion and what more topics would you want us to cover with Navneet Chitkara ji. And do share this episode as much as you can, and we'll meet in the next one. This is Rangoli with you. Namaste.
Namaste. Hare Krishna.